Hello everyone, this is Spaz from FLT Airsoft, here today to talk about some pros and cons of the krytac gearbox. Not necessarily their guns, their externals seem to be really nice, really well made and really well thought out. And for the most part, their internals seem to be really well thought out. They do have some design elements that I don't really like, but they did what they did, trying to make advancements. Hopefully they can improve some more stuff in the future. First, we'll talk about the gearbox shell. The gearbox shell is a very robust material. It feels a little lighter than the normal zinc stuff. They say it's supposed to be an aluminum alloy. It's very possible that it is an aluminum alloy. It's got a nice proprietary coating to help prevent corrosion and stuff like that. It's solid. It's a little thicker in the front than some of the other ones that I've come across, and it has extra material added into the bottom, like an extra embossing into the bottom, and it also has the cutout for where your magazines go when they lock into place. That's how they added the extra material. They added it around, made it a little more stiffer, stronger in the front. The top spine is a little thicker than some of the other ones out there. They also have it pre-radiused, and it's actually done really decently. Some of the companies out there that have their radiusing done, the castings didn't come out very well. You still see some of the spots where there could be higher stress points and stuff like that. So that's actually an improvement, like some of the way they did some of the stuff. As you can see, I've fully torn down the gearbox all the way. The only thing I haven't removed from it is the pin for the anti-reversal latch, the bearings, and the MOSFET assembly. Let's move on to the MOSFET. The MOSFET is an IRL 3034 MOSFET. It's a very high quality MOSFET. It's able to handle most of the power that anybody will be able to throw at it. You can handle up to an 11.1 without a problem on the electronics. The one thing that I did not understand why they did was leaving this standard electrical mechanical safety type deal where the plate has to be across it to actually activate it. If this thing's going to short out and it's going to fry, most MOSFETs actually fry in the on position, so you'll just have a runaway gun no matter what. I think that was a feature that they didn't really need to have to integrate into the gun. As long as your safety is working correctly, your mechanical safety to stop the trigger is working correctly, the gun's not going to fire off on its own. Another one of the things I like is they actually have a thicker trigger trolley stop than some of the gearboxes normally have. There it is. Lonex has a thicker one like that. The Lonex and Bravo gearboxes have thicker ones like that. And hopefully it's got it made out of a stronger material. A lot of times, especially with heavy semi-auto use, those pieces break right off. In a lot of my higher end guns that I've been building for some of my customers, I actually trim that out and install a steel pin for the trigger trolley post from the beginning. That way they don't have to worry about it falling off as much. But another part that they designed in with the MOSFET is this cover that covers up the wires for the pass-through. Common issue on some of the version 2 gearboxes is the wire will move over time, and when you go to pull out your motor or something, your wire gets caught up in the motor and it can tear the motor or tear the sheathing, if not actually pull out the whole wire and destroy the wire, and you have to rewire the gearbox for it. Another part that they did for the wiring in the MOSFET is they put extra heat shrink on the wires to prevent or protect them when everything gets put together, and then it's extra heat shrinking on the motor connectors. I'm assuming to help with disassembly, if you ever have to take the motor in and out multiple times. The heat shrinking on the motor connectors always gets damaged over time, and also it's an extra thick to help prevent it from shorting out if it ever contacts the motor contact plate without the plate being there, or if it wore off the paint on the plate or something. Let's talk about the motor. The motor is a neodymium magnet motor. They're pretty strong. It's got a good cyclate rate. I've heard people say it was a 21 TPA, but the website advertises it as a 22 TPA. These are a black neodymium magnet. It has a different material composition, different manufacturing process that manufactures it, but it is a neodymium magnet motor. It does seem pretty strong, but I wouldn't consider it a top-rated motor. It's strong, it's fast, it's got lots of torque, but as far as for neodymium magnets, it's on the weaker scale of some of the stuff I felt. A couple other ones, I think, like the ICS motors had some pretty weak magnets. You know, the silver neodymium magnets tend to have seem to have, all the ones I've messed with anyways, they seem to have a higher magnet strength to them. So run it, it'll run good. Once it goes out though, if it ever breaks or blows out or whatever, I wouldn't recommend rebuying the krytac motor. You can get probably better performance, stronger performance out of, say, a JG Blue, the M42 motor, a ZCI high torque neomagnet motor, for half the price of what you would pay for this motor. This motor retails on their website for $75. In my opinion, this is not a $75 motor. The magnets are strong, but they're strong in relation to a ferrite magnet motor, comparably to like the SHS, the ZCIs, the JG Blues. These magnets and these are kind of weak comparatively. So I wouldn't pay $75 for this motor, wouldn't even consider it. I'll buy any of the other SHS, Lonex, ZCI, any of those instead. Oh, sorry about that. The quick change spring guide. The shaft is a solid steel, really strong steel shaft. Mine happened to fall apart in this customer's gun. It wasn't properly Loctited together. There was red Loctite. You can see. Come on, focus in. There it is. There was red Loctite there, and you can still see some there. Unfortunately, though, there was no Loctite, real good Loctite on the threads. It was all at the top, so that's why this thing fell apart. There's minimal damage. There's a little bit of galling and stuff on there. I'll polish that up and then clean everything in fuel injection cleaner to make sure that there's no oil residue, and I'll make sure that the threads on this are Loctited so that it actually holds into place the way it's supposed to. Unfortunately, at the same time that came apart, it also caused the piston to break. There we go. You can see the last two release teeth are broke off on it, and probably because it wasn't sitting right, it was catching the wrong teeth when it picked up as well. So other than that, the piston seems to be made of good material. I like the fact that they have multiple release teeth, so if you decide to go with a higher rate spring or whatever, and a higher rate battery, you can short stroke the gear teeth a couple of teeth and not have to worry about that. I really like the short stroke teeth and stuff. Alright, next on the agenda is the cylinder head. Cylinder seems to be the standard brass cylinder. It's got a 3/4 cut for probably around a 363 millimeter barrel. Anywhere between the 300 and 363 millimeter barrel will work fine. standard non-O-ringed air nozzle. Seems to get pretty good seal, even stock though, but it looks like a standard, almost looks like the Marui style cut. Let me see if it focuses again. Oh, come on. There we are. Looks like a standard Tokyo Marui style cut. You know, standard palm nozzle. Basic, no big deal. Cylinder head. This is where they did some work with their improvements on the gearbox. It's only got a single O-ring, but one of the cool things is the cylinder head, which is thicker and has a nice soft material to it. Because it runs it all the way out and actually a little bit beyond the edge of the cylinder head, as you put it in, you'll notice that it's a little stiff. It actually acts as kind of a second O-ring because it pushes up against the cylinder when it's there. So I mean, that's a neat little quality to it. It's a little thicker than the average padding on it, which enables it to push the piston back a little bit further, give you a little bit of angle of engagement. You'll actually find that it'll hold the piston in between the 12 and 1 o'clock position, so it's not quite at the 12 where we generally like it to be as techs for pickup. And they remove one tooth off of it to help so that it doesn't catch any pre-engagement and stuff like that, because if you move it back and you catch it, you're just going to catch that first tooth. So they take the first tooth completely out, which as a tech working on a gun, you always take that first tooth off anyways if you're correcting AOE, and then you usually take about half of the second one. Some techs take the first 2 teeth completely off without any problems. I usually do one and then I cut it at an angle. This is how I usually do my teeth cut for my angle of engagement. Let's see if we can get it to focus again here. There we go. I'll take the first one all the way down, and then I'll take the second one half off and then cut it at a 45-degree angle. That way I still have some of that second tooth to help pick up and not have any issues, you know, cause any extra stress on the third tooth. So that's how I do mine. You know, but it's a standard brass cylinder. The cylinder head is actually really nice. Seems to be made out of a decently stiff material. The nozzle, the brass part of the nozzle is, you know, cast in place, so it's holding very, very well. The tappet plate, standard palm tappet plate, pretty flexible, so you're going to have that little bit of a bend so it doesn't snap off immediately, but it still seems, you know, it's a tappet plate. If you take care of it, it works right, if you're not overstressing it and stuff. The selector plate, it has this weird piece on the back side of it. I think that's for the future integration of the kickoff. When you kick it into safety, it'll actually decompress the gearbox. I think that's for integration into that. That's why they say that the gearboxes will be able to be retrofitted with that. They designed the tappet plate with that future piece in mind. One of the other cool things on the tappet plate is it's got this little knob right here, and it fits. It runs across these little bumps. So not only with your selector switch do you have the positive click, it positively clicks into placement here, so you know you're positive, you're in place the way it's supposed to be. That's kind of neat. Cutoff lever could have been a little better. But it's a standard cast cutoff lever. But at the prices that you can make a steel cutoff lever, especially since everything's cast already anyways, it would have been better to go with the steel cutoff lever rather than the cast like zinc alloy or aluminum stuff. Give it a little more wear properties, a little better wear properties and stuff. Hello everyone, this is Spaz from FLT Airsoft here again. I don't need to say that because we're doing it as part of a bigger video. You fucking dickbag. Alright guys, now we're on the gear set. The gear sets, they seem to be made of a good material. They're advertised. Hold on. Let's get it focused in here. They're advertised as being a heat-treated steel alloy. I'm not sure exactly what the composition of the alloy is. The bevel gear seems to look like a few of the other standard bevel gears out there. It almost looks like it could be a sintered alloy, you know, like a standard sintered alloy gear. It's all molded and everything like that. The spur gear and the sector gear look a little bit different. They look like they're made out of a different material. I'm not sure what material they're made out of. These, I'm pretty sure, also a compressed or forged alloy or a stamped steel or something like that. They're not a CNC'd as far as I can feel. They might have a CNC finish to them, like the way the holes are drilled in it and stuff like that. But the gear, you can see it's not multiple pieces like some of the other gear sets out there, like SHS's, Riots, ZCI's, and all of them. This gear is one solid piece minus the tappet cam and the main shaft. It's all one piece. You can see right there where you can see the transition where it goes from the main to the small, or to the spur gear teeth on the sector gear. So it's all one piece. I'm not sure what the material it's made out of. The main focus of this part is going to be the sector gear here, or sorry, the spur gear. I don't know why I keep saying that wrong. First we'll talk about this spring they added on, their little self-shimming spring. It's got a self-shimming spring similar to the VFC stuff. VFC has a little insert that goes inside of the spring. The spring is much softer. This spring is very, very stiff. It's so stiff that it actually causes a reduction in the rate of fire. The krytac guns stock can shoot faster if this spring is removed and you put a solid shaft on there. One of my tech buddies did it. My buddy Rick, he took a gear that was similar to this old stock gear, but it was broke, and we took that shaft collar off of there and pulled the spring off of here, cut the shaft collar down to the size that it needed to be, put it on here, shimmed it properly, and it actually increased the rate of fire on his gun. This spur gear, for some reason, the shaft is loose in it. You can see I can push that back and forth. I have no idea why. This gun was only like 3 weeks old when the customer brought it back to us, 2 or 3 weeks old when the customer brought it back to us. Less than 7,000 rounds on the gun. But the big issue with this gear goes along with the way they designed the gearbox as well. There we go. Now we're focused in. This gear and the gearbox are proprietary to each other. You cannot use another set of gears. You can't put a set of like SHS's or lonex's or ZCI's or even a set of Riots inside of this gearbox without being able to modify the spur gear. Now if you get a spur gear that has a shaft collar like this, you know, like the one on a stock gear set, then you can probably modify this to be able to fit inside, but you're still going to have to do a lot to the shimming to be able to get it to work right. This gear and the spacing in between the two bearings is shorter than a standard gearbox. Now, one of the ways you can see this is if you look at the back side of the gearbox. You can see for the bevel, it's raised out, bushing is flush to that, but on the spur gear, you can see the bearing is actually flush to the gearbox, and even on the sector gear, you can see the bushing sticks out a little bit, whereas on the spur gear it does not. You can see the same thing on the opposite side, except on that one the spur gear hangs out a little bit and it's got its raised emboss to do that, and the same on the bevel gear. It's got its raised boss where you can do that. You know, there's a lip on both sides. The gear, the bearing is actually level to it, and then you have this one, it's a level to the box. Now on the inside, the demonstration, the way you can see that is you can see the bearing for the spur gear is actually level with that part of the gearbox, and this sticks up and this sticks up a little bit, so it looks like these might be raised high enough or up to the same height as this, but they're not. If you take a flat piece and you go across, you can see that there's a significant gap in between the bearing and the flat edge of that piece. So these are still recessed. The bevel and spur gears, bevel and sector gears are still recessed further than the spur gear is. That means you can't put any other gear type in. You know, take the SHS gear. Can't put it in there. Spins nice, runs good. You know what I mean? Problem is if you go to put it together, it's got a gap. It pivots on that pin. There are no shims on this gear. There's nothing like that. Which means if you locked this down, it would bind and blow out the bearings in a heartbeat. You know, and if you can see, I put that together. There's none of that rotating. There's none of that gap there. Everybody's going to say, all right, SHS gears, half the time those things are off tolerances anyways, right? Okay, fine. How about a Riot gear? This is for my set of 14-to-1 Riots. I've polished these things. I've maintained them. This is, I think, a Gen 1 set. I'm pretty sure it's a Gen 1 set. I've had it for a while, but I've never had any problems with these things. These things spin just like they were new. Same thing. Even though it looks like there's a shim on there, that's not a shim. That's part of, you know, the way the Riots are made. That's not a shim that's on there. I can't take that off. That's polished. So we'll pull this back apart. Put that in there. Spins like a champ. Bearings seem to be good. I don't like bearings. I wouldn't run bearings in it anyways. But you go to put it on, same thing. Pivots on that axle. So, which means all of this thought that they put into this gearbox and everything that they've done with this gearbox, you cannot put a high quality set of gears or a faster ratio set of gears inside this gun. You have to stick with the gears that they sell you from Krytac, which is this gear set. Unfortunately, I think that's quite ridiculous because they retail this gear set at $75 on their website. I'm sorry, even if it is a nice heat treated steel alloy, whatever it is. It's not CNC machined, and it's a one-piece, like, stamp forged or whatever process they actually use to make the gear sets material that's made in Taiwan. You know what I mean? The SHS gears, they're made in Hong Kong. They retail for 25 to 30 bucks wherever you find them. You know what I mean? I'd run these all day long, no problem, for $25, a third the price of these things, but you can't put them in, so you have to buy their gear set. To me, that is a complete design failure. You know what I mean? Although they most likely intentionally designed that into it, to me it's just a complete you know, screw you to anybody that actually wants to do really good upgrade work and stuff to these guns, because you can't do it. So, you know, it's some of the parts that they have in their stuff I've found to be extremely overpriced. The motor, you can find a better motor for, you know, 30-40 bucks, or $50 if you want to buy a Lonex motor. You know what I mean? $55 for a Lonex motor. It'd be better than this krytac motor. The krytac motor is good, but it's not a $75 motor. You know, the gear sets, they're solid. They look really nice. They perform very, very well from what I've seen. You know, besides this shaft that has gone to crap on this, which I'm going to have to take apart, clean, and Loctite together and hope it stays. But it's not a $75 gear set. It's ridiculous pricing. I think that is about it for now. I think the only thing I missed one of the things that I really liked is the way they have the post for the anti-reversal latch. Anybody that works on gearboxes on a regular basis, they know the anti-reversal latch is a pain in the butt to get into place right so that it holds and doesn't fall out, you know what I mean, when you're working on it. But I mean, that's pretty much it as far as I can see. For the most part, it's an okay design, but the design of the spur gear, where you can't add another gear set into it, I think that's a complete failure. And that, and you know, the reasons, you know, the issues we had with trying to RMA some parts and get some parts fixed through krytac, even though we were well within the warranty. They were willing to do it. The problem is they said it was going to be up to their tech on whether they actually charged us for the RMA work or not. Because of that, to me it's a failure of a gun. I would swap out a gearbox before I did anything else. And we're no longer going to be carrying the krytac line of guns unless they decide to change their design and everything, especially with something as blatant as this. I'm not working with that one. Well, you guys have a nice day. I will see you again.